Wednesday the 8th of January 2024. I'm at home with my pets. And Sukasa's over there. My Sukasa rabbit. In a giant cage big enough for a man to go in. On a waterproof bed that is easy to be washed. So I'm just going to try and position this camera in the best way I can. So I could possibly have the better camera position. Remove my jumper because I am going to have a huge electrical bill having an electrical heater on top of my radiator because the idiots who gave me a new boiler with an old programmer, so therefore the central heating doesn't work. And it was done deliberately because they want to be the false good guys, which is corruption, without telling me. They did it deliberately to say, oh, we're going to save you money on your gas bill. So it's organised crime. It's a cover-up because it's social housing. It's part of the far-left government that's abusing their powers based on my social housing contract and whatever they can do to attack me for no good reason and to spread smear campaigns and disinformation. I want to do a one-off video, so I'm going to have to do my best on what I am anti-corruption in government, in politics, in personal life basically means, giving an example of that, how the root of that evil is the love of money more than the kindness. That's the golden rule through the Christian faith. Treat others as you'd like to be treated. Goodwill to all mankind. Basically, it denies that. So it's a constant warrior and never a peacemaker. And so it's the opposite of Christianity, and yet these very individuals who love money more than God are founded in public places of religious worship, various types, many various types. I'm just called a Christian. I don't belong to a certain denomination. There are various types of Christian denomination. I don't belong to them. And so the coarse voice, the deep extra voice of authority and of masculine women who behave in a masculine way would somehow accuse me of losing control over reporting incidences of antisocial behaviour to the police and my landlord, which is social housing. And this is totally out of order because my voice is slightly more soft and more feminine compared to the political feminist and the fascist, who sounds more aggressive, more authoritative. So she somehow gets to lord over me of her opinion and judgment over me, so-called, quote-unquote, losing control over the situation. And you can't say that to someone who is bedbound, severely sick and housebound and say that you're going to hand over the police's job for me to do the job. That's the whole point of reporting it to the police. And it means absolutely nothing to the very housing officials who are corrupt. So they did an inspection here for fire and safety regulations by the very same department that has stopped my rubbish clearance collection, which is assisted collection of rubbish at the front door in 2020, new policy implemented because my housing association had approached the council and made a new policy in 2020 to stop collecting rubbish for disabled people in flats. This is dehumanising and a corruption. It has been around for 20 years or more, and suddenly it stopped for COVID pandemic regulations for safety, that you could hit the air to say that because it's airborne virus, it protects the people from entering the building block of flats. But they're okay, it's accepted to carry on the work of refuse collection for house owners and for people generally who are not necessarily house owners, who are living in a building, in a house, ground level, not in a flat, so they will not enter the building block. And this is so wrong. And I reported it. I tried helping myself. I tried asking assistance with Citizens Advice Bureau. I appealed it, and every time I was ignored. I said, it's not COVID pandemic anymore. Can you reinstate it? I'm at risk. I could fall down the stairs and break my ribs or break bones. I can't do that. It's too much of a risk. It's too much painful. I'm at risk of falling anyway. They've ignored it. They kept ignoring it. I now have to throw my rubbish bin over the balcony in the morning, making sure there's no one below. It's very early in the morning. It's because I cannot carry it down the stairs. It's a risk safety aspect, and because the council's ignoring me. Or else be exploited of paying out £200 a month to have private assisted collection, which is another corruption, exploiting me of my monies that I could use for medication and other treatments to help me recover. Instead, I'm bloated. My situation has gotten worse with my medical problems. In my stomach, I had a tumour, some bleeding abscess, and my spine, and other medical serious conditions that had been ignored, or as if I'm not disabled at all, to suit the corrupt politicians. And again, these are the left government, not involved, and they cover themselves so efficiently, their tracks and the wrongs that they do through loopholes, that you could not make them accountable for the wrongs that they do. So I've mentioned the fact with my boiler, I've had ongoing problems for 10 years. They made me have an old boiler that they kept using repairs, which was an about 15 years old boiler for 10 years that wasn't working properly. And every time they came, they did something wrong deliberately. And every Christmas I was freezing cold, and I would have to use my very old electrical heater that I've had since I was 18 years old. So it's on its way out. And so I have a lot of things to purchase. I have to purchase a fly catcher to kill the insects coming out of my bin, even with the lid shut. I have to purchase another heater. I need to purchase a blender so that I can blend herbs and other things as my own home food remedy medicine. Because my stomach is not digesting food properly. Within an hour of eating, I am vomiting, sickness and diarrhea. And when I gave a sample to my GP for antibiotics more than 10 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, it was a Mr. Corpse, surname, doctor, refused me antibiotics. And here I am, 12, 13 years later, with the same rotavirus that's turned into something else more serious. So that what's the point going to your GP and your doctor when they make you more ill and deny you antibiotics, when my elimination was the same as a baby poo, yellow, for 13 years. Poo samples they had everything, and they kept saying no, no, or keep giving me medications that made my stomach worse, such as peppermint and other things. So they are supposed to be qualified doctors, not an 18-year-old. They should know what they're doing, but they do it deliberately to destroy my health. So these are the racist government that hates anyone who looks Pakistani, anyone who looks European, anyone who doesn't look English or sound English enough. They would target their patients in care with abuse. So it's an untrustworthy doctor. And I regret ever putting my trust in them. It's 5 years, 7, 8 years waste in this corruption, or just simply going to visit my local GP on a regular basis for nothing, that I don't have the trust anymore in the public hospital, or if it was private, I tried both. And each time they would discriminate the fact that I'm unemployed, that I come from a small family, and they have breached my privacy data. So they know about me being a single, independent, disabled person. However, if I was a big family, or however, if I was a wealthy person, they wouldn't discriminate. So this is a huge problem in the era of low quality, bad quality public care services. I've also noticed that another corruption on social media, which is anti-social, they would call me a grandmother because older politicians would sexually harass me, shut down my accounts. And these are older politicians. A lot of them, I don't know who they are. And destroy things that are important and essential for my basic survival and civility and basic dignity, so that I could live. They've destroyed because I refuse to be a whore for them. I refuse to say a yes. So I've never in my entire life had like a mother figure or a father figure, so I've turned to religion and Christianity. That is a mother and a father to all the orphans for emotional support. Since there was no community and there was no general respect for Christians, they would mock us, they would insult us, add insult to injury. Total strangers that I don't even know. That's my experience of just simply having a Hanukkah lump, for example. I'm not Jewish. However, as a Christian, I did observe Jewish festivals too, such as Hanukkah and my menorah lamp, which was for keeping the Sabbath holy, which was every day. I didn't always light up the light with fire. I would use the light of a candle or of a battery like this. Just click it on, and there's the candle, which is battery operated. And just simply say my prayer. I had to remove my menorah and my Hanukkah lamp as a Christian from my windowsill because someone who was dog walking, again, who is a leftist or the centrist voter and taxpayer, house owner, it's the same woman who apparently she was divorced or separated from her Jewish business partner, and he told me that she stole a lot of money from him. She was in the neighborhood, this main dog walker. When I first moved in here many years ago in 2013, and end of 2013, I moved in. And so these type of derogatory comments are very, very offensive and very, very hostile, that we won't take you seriously and that your religion is dumb and what has your God done for you? All you have is persecution. And every opportunity and loophole they have, I'm eating raisins to help me go to the toilet regularly. I also have prunes because of not being able to exercise or feel safe, just simply going for a walk in case I bump into that woman dog walking, or in case I bump into a man who is very aggressive on the road either on a motorbike or car. I could be hit over by a car. Again, these are all voters for the left government. The majority of them, unfortunately, in the area where I live, I cannot afford to live in a conservative area. And so that's another huge problem, is that we're automatically rejected on the voting system even to say you don't belong here. And so I had an option of postal vote for the first time in my life that I've said no because I'm severely disabled. And I haven't always got someone to post my letters. And I want to, for this new year, as soon as it's less than freezing below zero, I like to plan at least once a week to go for a walk to my nearest bench. But it's a threat, it's a death threat all the time because of generalization of a hostility against migrants or fat people or disabled people. I never used to have a big belly like this until I went to see a mixed half private sector, half public sector, a doctor called Ama. And he inserted tubes into my mouth, throat for endoscopy and colonoscopy in my bottom hole, and looked through a camera. And I don't believe that they cleaned those tubes well, and because I became very unwell. And he said I had some cysts in my small intestine, and they were not cancerous, and I had no bowel disease or anything of that. But he believes it's stress-induced because of bad stress, not because of psychiatric drugs of a minor personality disorder, which I'm actually allergic to. And I was forced to take it for 10 years, these pills of aripiprazole, risperidone, and so many other types of pills like a guinea pig, only for going through a divorce and the death of my ex-husband that they forced me to take these psychotic drugs, which is the same as drug pushers, forced me, either by pills or injection, that I had taken 115 injections without any community treatment order. So it was forced on me, and they broke their own policies and rules. So that's a corruption in 2008 when I divorced, and 2012 when my divorced husband died. The ex-husband I left. So I made an appeal this year, 2025, to see if that's someone that from the government can help investigate that his death was a designed suicide. It was my one and only partner for life that lived with me for the longest time, was 4 years that he lived with me. I had not had anyone else live with me, only him. And I have not ever had any other marriage. And since I have remained and abstained from sex and remained single, because of being devastated of all the bad things that have happened, and because of partial judges that are constantly discrediting me and making a disclaimer or some type of devaluing me all the time on social media, internet, where I can't protect my privacy and my data in a poverty, low income, unemployment status. And so I'm using the internet for my own advantage, benefit, but they turn it to a disadvantage and an attack or weaponization. So I have taken my own risk to put that message across, to say I need help because I've been accused of the one who is doing self-harm, the one who is mentally ill, the one who is going to be punished for the perpetrator's faults, and for him child abusing our daughter at the time when we were divorced. He would see her regularly and abuse her from age 2, ever since she was a young child. And I was drugged to my eyeballs by force, couldn't really tell what was going on. And then I realized that because he rejected his son, he went insane. He rejected his son, said that his ex-wife turned his son against him, and he rejected his son, full stop. Nothing else to be said, even though his son kept calling him up and wanting to see him. So when his son had died, he went insane. He went to abuse my daughter from 2010 9. It got before his son died. He was abusing my daughter because he's a madman anyway. So he abused her. I haven't seen the abuse, but after my vision and the blurred vision and dizzy spells or psychotic drugs had faded, were less potent, I could then see what he was doing that seems inappropriate, the way he was holding her, the way he was looking at her, and the way he was hyper defensive. He was hyper sensitive to being defensive. He wanted to see his daughter, who was also a teenager, that he hasn't seen since she was a baby, called Charlotte, but he refused to see Sam, since he was a baby, who was a teenager. And so Sam went and jumped into the ocean. It was in the Sky Media, news media outlet, I think it was 2010 or 11, where he found out he died by jumping in the ocean with clothes on, and it was so heavy he drowned. And so I'm making some type of an appeal voluntarily. If there is a newsagent or some journalist or someone that is some type of a detective, can do some research on getting the evidence from that broadband, which I think it was BT. It wasn't broadband, it was just a main landline where I used to live, which was 20 Swallows Oak, WD33JT. No, it was WD, it wasn't W3, it was WD50LF, and it was near Watford area, not near Rickmansworth area. So it was WD50LF at 20 Swallows Oak. And that was the telephone number that I had him call me and him say that he was going to overdose on the same day of his bypass surgery. So he designed his own death. No one knows, only I know. And I told him in that call, don't do it. I asked where he was going. When I saw him face to face, he refused to tell me what hospital it was. And so he designed his own suicide, which is proof that he's the one who's the madman, which is proof that he was the one who was grief-stricken and did not take the responsibility to help himself. He was self-harming. Not only did he do that to himself, he did it to our daughter. He was the one who contacted Children's Social Services. He was the one who told the school that I had no family and no friends. He was the one who did all of that stirring and smearing against me because he wanted revenge that I left him. I had a divorce. And I didn't know him that well, even though I was dating for 6 to 9 months before we got married. So I didn't know. I should have done a background check that he was a criminal also. There was a lot of corruption going on, and he repeated that corruption after stealing a lot of money from the Bank of England to live and work in America. He had another wife. He was already married and not divorced, and so he broke the law in England by coming to England to marry me. And so when I found out that he also was filming me while I was having sex with him and sell the tape, there's nothing more humiliating and demoralizing than that. So he was a dirty old man. I wanted a divorce immediately, but he was violent towards me during the pregnancy because the doctor said he was impotent after many tests. And so I shouldn't have really gotten pregnant. So he used to be violent towards me, emotionally and physically abusing me. Whose baby is it? It can't be my baby. And are you having an affair? Because his 2 or 3 other wives had affairs. He accused me of being the same. And so it was horrendous that what I had gone through. I suffered in silence because I realized that a lot of the authorities are corrupt. And if I told someone, they may turn it on me and say it was me who had a mental disorder, not him, because he was obviously having more money. He was the breadwinner of the house. compared to me, who was unemployed and pregnant. And so I was afraid to speak out for that reason, and which is another example of corruption. So she was my miracle baby. She was my only family I had as an orphan myself. Whereas my ex-husband, who was Chris, and his surname was Boyd, he had a big family. He had brothers, cousins, all around him, and lots of friends, where I had none. I was too busy caring for my only daughter and not being able to afford childminders. I could only turn to a corrupt foster mum who hates me. She is Catholic. And she hates me for no reason. She's also made wrong judgments against me based on something that she has fantasized, and has always refused to get to know me. Even if I tried to get to know her and for her to have the chance to get to know me, she refused, as a stubborn mule or some type of a bully, to not to want to know anything from my perspective. So I had no choice, because of childminding being too expensive, to regularly contact my foster mum, who is Catholic, to sometimes care for my daughter. And she's never attended any family law court case or any tribunal regarding mental health services. I was always on my own, alone, on my own. There was never any support at legal aid. I had to look at the situation of being overpowered by my foster mum, who is already involved with children and social services and care work, that has overseen and overpowered me, in the sense that she's now taken custody of my child through the fact that she has to see my daughter more than I see her, through a hidden social construct through my daughter. And my daughter doesn't know any better, because she's only just still growing and developing her brain until she's 25. So my daughter she's just handed that social contract over to see my foster mum, who is Catholic, whose name is Anne, and my daughter's name is Ellen, as often as she wants, including my ex-mother-in-law. So I have a family who live in Cambridge. They're too far away, like 2 hours or 3 hours drive. So while I'm sick, my daughter couldn't have that option to go to my family relatives instead of my ex-husband's relatives. So this is totally unfair, to have my daughter be brainwashed, indoctrinated, and turn my daughter against me by my ex-mother-in-law's lies, who says that I have never allowed my daughter to see her father, which is a lie. And so all of this has been created because she has been bribed with money, saying that she will have the inheritance of her grandmother's house when she dies, and she will financially always be supported by the extended family of my ex-husband. Instead of me as a poor person, a poor pauper, her biological mum, that she totally forgets about. So it's a generational curse created by a corrupt government in my family, where history is repeating itself. But the only difference is they're not institutionally racist towards my daughter, because she looks and sounds more English compared to me. I don't look and sound English. So she's had more of an opportunity within the education, within the social, and within everything for her holidays compared to me. I had no holidays all my life until until I was in my late 30s and my late 40s. Twice in my entire life have I ever been abroad. So she's a selfish, spoiled brat. She's destroyed my life in the sense that she's told lies about me since she was age 12, because she got the gist that she was going to get more power and more praise from the corrupt individuals who are kidnappers. As an example on that, she has no reflection, and she cannot remember for the nearly 10 years that she lived with me, of what I did for her. She cannot remember any of it, because she had child post-traumatic stress disorder, which is called an emotional detachment disorder, and it's much worse for children to experience forgetting how they used to exist and their happy childhood memories because of the trauma of us being separated, and the counsellors that are designed to only make my daughter see things in a partial way, to suit the partial judges, to suit children's social services, and to suit the toxic majority. So it's also giving her repeated images and idols, and you don't need God. You only need money, a boyfriend, and holidays to live and be happy, to be independent. You don't need God. You don't need your mom. You don't need God's blessings. You don't need your mom's approval. You're now an adult. You can do what you like. Wrong. She is still a child adult until she's fully developed to age 25. And so it's a shadow government also involved on my social media, which is doing credit score attacks. It's doing censoring and my speech. So I could do maximum of 10 videos, I would say, unlock it, publicize it, and then lock it up after 2 or 3 months that it has been shown, then lock it all up and give 10 other new brand videos. Leave it for 2 months and then lock it up again. So it's censoring me through new technology and AI, and doing everything it can to make me out to be the bad guy, while they're the false good guys are not. So this is also an example of corruption, that they have the stronger hand, the upper hand, as slave masters, to totally destroy my youth, my life, and my daughter, so that she's now turned against me. She's turned against me because I didn't turn up on her birthday near that date. On the 18th, I had excessive sickness and diarrhea, and so I couldn't go anywhere. I tried telling her that. She just said, oh, in response, you're always sick and you're making excuses. You don't really care about me, and I can't be bothered to write to you until you're much better. So my basic test of trust is to say, will you write to me and send me some text messages rather than call me, because I'm constantly running to the blue and I can't really do much talking on the phone and I'm not very well, which is a reasonable request. And also I was going to say, if she did trust and obey me as her mom, to continue and to keep up the contact and the good work in being in contact, at least once a week, send a text message, or every day you could, but no calls until I recover. And she refused because she felt I was trying to control her or coax her to do what I wanted. So she was unreasonable, unfair, and so that's an example of corruption. So I'm also treated as an immigrant, as a type of a foreigner, even though I've lived in England since I was 6.5, 7 years old. So that's a corruption, because I am a British citizen. I'm not a rubbish refugee. And I do feel sorry for many of those rubbish refugees. I feel pity for them because they're promised a safe haven, and at the same time they're killed off at the very place that they call safe havens, as they're not rubbish refugees. They're actually survivors of war, similar to veterans. And it's caused me a lot of devastation and distress, as if my daughter's dead, along with her dad, who died in 2012. And I could never get her back. Even if I was married to the richest man in the world and I had the best holidays and the best clothes and the best medicines, it's as if she sold her soul to the devil. Because this is what they teach her. They've taught her to disrespect me and to disvalue me and to do all types of wrongs, even though I have told her I was attacked. And please try and understand what my requests are. Don't give up. Wait until you grow up fully. And I treated her appropriate for her age. But she treated me as if I don't mind. I won't mind if she goes her separate ways. And this is also because of the bad influence of the adults around her, including my foster mum. My daughter's the only treasure I had and the most precious thing I've ever had. Not because of money, but because of being my flesh and blood. Now, if I was on the news, or if I was reporting a dead child in my arm, then people may want to shed a tear and say, oh, well, we understand how you feel. But this is worse than death. To know that your child is alive somewhere and is being indoctrinated and doing things against your will to harm herself and her life. She cannot tell the time and the place of any happy memories we had. I also had evil counselors on YouTube that told me to take down my family pictures off of the wall and just forget about her, move on. She's my one and only child. I'm never going to forget about her, and I'm not going to take down pictures off of the wall as a closure because I live alone. If I didn't live alone, however, and I had a partner for life, I was remarried with other children, then maybe then I would take the pictures down. Since I'm not remarried and I don't have any other children, I keep the pictures up. And so it's very unfair and reasonable that they've said that. I'm more upset taking the pictures down than to keep them as they are. So the earliest memories I had of my daughter was her little laughter and her calling me mom, mama, and I would call her Elia, which is a Serbo-Croatian version of Ellen. And since then, I had hostile gang stalkers bring their children in my neighborhood, also called Elia. And I've had a landlord called Jay, who was a man who attempted to attack me in every sense. Because I refused to be his girlfriend and I refused to have any connections to this man after my divorce, he wants revenge. He's a narcissist individual that wanted to make hell for me. So the very one who's done that could be a possibility that he's one of the politicians in England now. And he was preoccupied in abusing women, and he's a half-caste Spanish and half-caste Indian man who's called Jay. And his brothers, his son, all of them could have got involved somehow and have had no shame in being involved without me even realizing. And so I could not have pleasure or pain in the privacy of my own home without them knowing about it. That's how intrusive they were of 2 decades, and that they still are. Even more so that I've joined social media. That is also another corruption of having a judge who would partially judge me in family law court, ignore my disabilities, ignore anything to do with me and what I have achieved and what I have sentimentally attached to, naturally, with natural affection. All of that was ignored. And my solicitor and my barrister in East London, which was Moss and Beachley Column, that was threatened of being shut down by the Children's Social Services officials in Hertfordshire. So I had a readiness, even by death threats, of not having the correct medication, the correct treatment, of not having enough time to prepare to go to court, not being able to see an opportunity to help me recover Instead, I'm regressing. I'm going back constantly. The history is being used against me. And they're saying the same thing that my professional ex-husband, as a Star Trek Borg monster that he was in America, where he was employed as an actor, resistance is futile. So in other words, he's unbreakable. There's nothing that you could do about domestic abusers, about certain politicians or certain tyrants that are very similar or the same as Nazis. So they were jealous and envious that for the first time we had an accommodation, which was a 2-bedroom accommodation, where I had lived previously. She had her own room while I was sleeping on the sofa for 10 years. And the very first time we moved into her second home, our second home, which would have been my third home, I was living in a bedsit in a semi-detached house, and here. So it was my daughter's second, it was my third. And so when we moved in here, she was very happy, and they destroyed that happiness. You're not allowed under Section 20. We're taking you away from your mum. She was screaming to high heaven, don't take me. I believe in my mum. She will rescue me. And it all became a figment of her imagination, and an indignant feeling for me to my stomach of trauma, not being able to rescue her from a stranger's house, and not being able to help my daughter to have more regular contacts with me. All that was denied through family law court, and not wanting to have my foster mum involved. I had no choice, because she wasn't for me, she was against me, and she was acting as though she was for me, so that she could now influence and tell my daughter what to think, what to do, and in a type of a convincing way that she's a retired teacher and that she knows what's best for my daughter, not me. So she's now forced me to suffer in silence, to push me into a corner as if I was some type of a whore or a drug addict, forced me into the vulnerable category safeguarding unit, which was not suitable for me, since I was not a drug addict, not a whore, and not someone who had behavioural problems. So I was put in the wrong category in the first place, misguided, bribed, saying that we would help you. In fact, they harmed me and my daughter. And while my ex, who was dead, 3 years dead, rolling in his grave, he had the first word and the last word, unbreakable Borg monster, living or dead. He's still the breadwinner. He's still the abuser, and his family get to see my daughter and take over her life. So I can't have that witness of her growth and development. Is always the false witnesses getting involved. So the government has, in this way, through corruption, destroyed my life and my daughter's life. That if she does have adolescent sex or young marriage, it would be ending up in divorce and separation as a result of this dysfunctional family, not as a result of the fact that she's doing very well in her grades and she's got A-levels and degrees and honours. So she was made to forget her childhood very quickly, in spite of the fact that I knew she had very late life-changing journals and counselling that we were put on the longest waiting list. And so she doesn't know anything about me as a living parent. She knows more about her dead parent than she does of me, which is a gross injustice. And as a result of privacy violation and third parties looking at my documents and things, they too got to destroy all my civil rights, my freedoms in Christ. And the very one who had stripped me naked and molested me gets to be employed in Parliament of London, gets to travel to Japan, China, and America, and then come back again. Freedom of speech, freedom of movement. So he's a mixture of a centrist government. I had no idea that was the case. I did not know. And all I knew is that they were connected to the Parliament of London and they were gang stalking me. And their children had been writing graffiti on the cement, concrete, with oil and with paint, and on the walls. And it was always matching our last conversation. At the end of the video, I'm going to show a mark on the ceiling where the boiler's leaking, but it looks like something else, which is another corruption that the very same department that stopped my rubbish assisted collection with the cooperation of new policymakers are the same department who had changed my lock recently and muttered in their disgusting mouths that I could tell them that I don't want my key changed. They could still fix my door handle without the key locksmith. So they were muttering that and not waiting for a response for me to say, thank you for the opportunity and giving me the chance to decline your action of changing my lock. So he's changed my lock. And at the same time, he was muttering under his voice that he was looking at fire and safety regulations and that he will go into the loft to check if there is a secret spy camera in there. Can I trust such an individual? No. But I will pursue him to make sure that he puts it in writing that he's been in the loft so that I can present it to my local council and see with my disability human rights if I can find someone else, maybe from the local church, to go in the loft and have a second opinion, since I can't go there myself. And by the time I've gone there, the corruption individual would have escaped. It's too late. So I suspect that there was a loft hatch door open. There was no door in the community hall for corrupt neighbours and criminals to go up in the loft and spy in my flat from 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And they've hidden it with military equipment. That's what they told me when my window was open. I could hear her shouting and laughing, saying, I know what you're doing. I know when you put your slippers on. I know what app you installed from Google Play Store. And to me, it all sounds like a socialist, fascist, leftist thugs that are doing this. And again, they're covered up their crimes. And they've also had some horrible individual 2 years ago at 9 a.m. car park and have sex in my car park following the Bad Guy film from Will Smith. And so what I did was breathe like that so that I didn't have to listen to the couple having sex with their door open. I could hear everything and I did not go and look out. And I could not go and shut the window. I wanted fresh air and I wasn't fast enough to shut the window. So I didn't have to listen to them. And I put it on my social media. They've stolen my breathing and they've made it into something else through witchcraft to say that I am jealous and envious of them. No, I'm not jealous and envious of them. I am upset and angry that this government has allowed evil people to get away with murder and to get away with doing all types of kidnap and adultery and filthy perversions such as sex grooming gangs and stalking gangs. They're let off and they're not prosecuted. So I cannot supervise my daughter anymore. I never did, for being paralysed recent 2 years ago. And I could not trust anyone around me to do so either. So they've destroyed my daughter's life. She's always had toys and games. She's always had, every week, other children play with her, other clubs, other activities. I told Children's Social Services. I showed them pictures and videos. They ignored and laughed and had a disgusting, perverted smile and half smirks on their faces. Looked at me as if to say, we can do better than that. So it was as if it was some type of corrupt competition, an unfair challenge that they made me have. And every money I had for child maintenance, it was always for her holiday, for her trips, for her journeys, for her clubs. I had nothing. Even to today, I have still not enough money because they're constantly exploiting me and attacking my eligible services and things. My daughter generally did enjoy school and company of other children. We had parties, and it's not my fault that the parents didn't want to have anything to do with me for not being English, for not being employed, and for not being able to drive a car. So they want nothing to do with me. Again, this is not my fault that I've had that stereotype and that horrible discrimination. I also suffered with oversized ovary. It was never my right. It was always my left. It was growing into a size of a grapefruit, pushing on my bladder that I had to cut, which was hysterectomy. Founded by AMA. Same doctor that did my stomach thing. I was not given an alternative medication, so it was as if I was forced or manipulated into having the surgery, when in fact I could have been taking the medication to reduce the polycystic ovary growth that had caused me 14 years of pain. Constant pushing on my bladder. I enjoyed dancing. I couldn't dance. And it was caused by a Depo-Provera, same substance for horses, fertility treatment to stop them being impregnated in slightly smaller doses, but 100% for 4 years, forced on me since I was 14, 15, very young, still child, to take it, while I was sexually groomed and child abused since I was 5 years old. The same thing is repeating, and if I hadn't told my husband at the time, whom I trusted, I shouldn't have trusted, he wouldn't have abused her. So I regret ever telling him. I regret ever taking pictures of my daughter in a photo album. I regret ever trusting him. So my advice is, any woman that wants to get married to live with a man, she should do a police background check. If it is a money laundering, or if it is something to do with constant money impunity crimes, theft or something of that nature, is extremely dangerous profile. And that's my recommendation and advice for women looking to get married. And even with someone who has not got a crime, they can suddenly become a criminal. Reality check. And to test that is the maturity of self-control and the maturity of being able to tell the truth and not be some type of a trap or trickster. So tricksters are the most dangerous also, that could suddenly not be a criminal to being a criminal turntables. My other advice, if you're divorced, do not have your child go anywhere near. If it's a girl, of the opposite sex, no contact with the dad. If it's a boy, supervised contact, because it's a different gender. And this should be against the law for divorced parents. Either way, it could be a sexual predator as a woman, divorcee mother, or divorcee father. Extremely dangerous to have contact with children of the opposite sex. The other thing I would recommend for future development is to have telephones screened involving suicide, where you could choose what government as a third party to listen to your telephone calls as evidence. And also any type of conversation that involves suicide, child abuse, or murder threats. That should automatically be a button function on your normal telephone handset. But if you feel threatened, you can simply tap that button and say that I want a third party or somebody to listen in or record, instantly record. That should be, which is similar to Samaritans, a lot more advanced. So that should be the case. Also CCTV cameras regards children and childminders to always have a choice of what third party or what government you want. So when you switch on that camera, it's automatically connected to monitor the childminder and or the divorced parent. My daughter also had other hobbies other than clubs. She used to enjoy caring for wild animals, a hedgehog, a bat, bees, and butterflies, and African snails. And she used to enjoy taking care of them, feeding them porridge, fish keeping animals in a pond, catching fish, learning how to do fishing, everything to do with the scouts clubs, with parents rather than in the clubs, being closer to nature and taking care of the nature stewardships in our Christian faith. But now it has become that your Christian faith is taken away from you if you're poor, sick and disabled. Your civil rights and your freedoms are taken away from you if you're poor, sick and disabled. It's only there for the working class, which had also been created by politicians in America such as Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and others in America. And why should England follow their example as the fascist and socialist society? It's only preferential treatment in hospitals, in schools, in holiday makings, in even religious public places of worship. They always respect and do human worship, and or they do watch you for bad, not for good. If you're unemployed, sick and disabled, and you're not wealthy and you're not having a big family. So this is not traditional. This is a new modern thing that has been implemented by corruption. I heard them say it. I've been watching Bernie Sanders on YouTube and others from the leftist government say this from their own mouths. Working class, working class, working class, working class. House owners, purchase a house. Because they have the big family to support them and the finances to enable them to purchase a house. What about those who are ethnic minorities and marginalised that don't have a big family, they don't have a backup, and they don't have a lot of money investment opportunities where they can grow their money? Money does not grow on trees. So we're denied and rejected from having investment companies and other accounts because we cannot afford it. We don't have a backup. So this is more than a story. These are just examples of corruptions as a one-off video. I'm hoping to keep this as a permanent record of what corruption is, as in my experience, and how it has ruined my life for 4 decades. So I'm in my 40s, I'm not 50 yet. So my daughter was interested in wildlife. She was also interested in simply caring for me like I care for her. Simple routines: make your bed in the morning, help mum to do the chores. This is before I was severely disabled, and I deteriorated because the doctors refused to help. They only wanted one-sided judges, one-sided children's social services, one-sided teachers, all of them ganged up. So there's 40 or 80 of them versus one me. Is that fair? So the family tree, her interests, her hobbies have all been obliterated. So it became about them and their egos and their surrogate mums or surrogate fathers for my daughter, totally ignoring her childhood and her pre-existing likes and dislikes, wishes and feelings. All ignored, all thrown out in the bin. Did your mum teach you that? Is that what you felt comfortable with your mum? And is that what you did when your mum was just simply talking to you? No, can't have that, can't have that, you're too comfortable. Your mum's not allowed to be a friend. She has to be formal. And so my daughter knew that I was the boss. She knew I was the one who was keeping her safe, keeping up with the bills, and keeping her in the truth. They knew that. They wanted to get rid of it. So they accused me, conveniently for them, to say that that we were too friendly and that I was too childlike. So when you have physical pain, your voice goes up. And when you have physical pain, I mean, I can understand that she's better having that support of a new community and a new family that could support her for fostering, but not to the extent of totally disrespecting my disability, totally disvaluing the fact that she lived with me for nearly 10 years, totally reducing my contact only to 4 times a year, and ignoring the option of my extended family, which is in Cambridge. I did mention it, it was ignored because they're too far. So they've made her in a very young mind, at 9.5, had idol worship. You would go on skiing holidays, you will have more clothes, you will have more food, you will have more friends, you will have more education in the diversity of learning, you will have so much more and be better off without your mum. This is what they've instilled into her mind, into her heart, that she's lost her soul to the devil as a result. So to a child, her first love is her mum. So that mothering bond is cut off, which is demonic and satanic. Not to be allowed to say, I miss you, I want to come home, and I want to hug you. That was stopped at contact centre. Not allowed. She was so afraid she went to hide in the cupboard. And this is the result of what they've done in accordance to my written journal. So I've written a journal here of everything that has happened during the time that they've taken her away. So they've extended it to saying that I'm a child abuser, to animal abuser, to a false Christian, to totally humiliate me in everything about me. She also used to enjoy music. They've stopped her natural ability to sing and to play an instrument. They've turned it into her new skill, which is being an artist. So she's now an artist and is ignoring her other skill as a musician and a singer. Why are they so one-sided? Why can't she have both? Some people will say this is the new order, which is dictatorship, which is authoritarianism. So they've closed their ears tight. They won't open her ear. And they have become a hostile threat. If I have ever told my daughter the frank truth, I'm not blaming her for the divorce, and that she believes that I'm blaming her for the divorce. This is how they've crucified my daughter and made her disobedient to me. If she did write to me by WhatsApp or by email, I could have then allowed her to phone me every day if she wanted to. So from the very beginning, since they took her from me, they made her disobedient because they were jealous and envious that she was obedient and that she was happy at my home. New home, first time, new bedroom, new pets, everything. And we were united in oneness. As a Christian, basic, simple, modest family that they have destroyed and shred into bits and pieces and shed innocent blood, which is satanic. So France, for example, before the New World Order, used to disagree with child kidnapping. And now they've betrayed me and implemented it. And allowed these systemic, malicious rumours and horrible humiliations to be the ones who are the wolves in sheep clothing. And I and all the orphans, all the outcasts who have survived abuse, we know more about the wolf in sheep's clothing than anyone else. So much so that we have now become the skin of the wolf as the saints and the 72 disciples going out as God's saints and servants, wearing the wolf's skin. We've skinned the wolf, the tyrant, the abuser, as survivors of abuse, and protect the sheep as the good shepherd. Example through Christ and the 72 disciples entering upon to these cities, and anyone who rejects us, we will wipe off the dust of our feet. Because rejection of holiness, of the truth that sets us free, is the first line of defense, to say you reject our truth, therefore you're a false witness, therefore you're not for us, you're against us. And so we know that sometimes we have to sort of appear to be as the wolves in sheep's clothing, or say the opposite of what we mean, to protect the sheep. So if I am the head of Christ, if I am the leader, I know that I am, but a stranger looking at me for the first time will not know, will not be sure. As a head of a Christ and as a leader, my first duty of call of duty is not to look at the emotion of things, but to look at the common sense things. To say protect the truth at all costs, even if it means wearing a mask or wearing the dead skin of a wolf. Or pride pack. Which is everything to do with betrayal. Which is everything to do with a personality disorder that either swaps or switches or is stuck somewhere in their emotion. That means not being able to tolerate someone who is different from them, and not being able to take anyone serious, someone who is weaker than them. That is a wolf in sheep's clothing. They will abuse instantly anyone who's weaker than them or poorer than them at any given opportunity as an abuser. That is a profile of a wolf in sheep's clothing, a paedophile, predator, persecutor of Christians, and of anyone else who claims to know God and want to serve God. They will attack because they hate God. They're God haters. They hate the truth. They hate freedoms. For us, the truth keepers, the light bearers, they would call themselves the light bearers and the light, when in fact it is a false light, a bad angel masquerading, acting as the good one, the false good guys. So this is swapping and switching within a systemic abuse. We will help you. We are your helpers. We are your defenders. Or the very ones who are supposed to defend you is the one who is harming you and saying, boo, now I've got you cornered. Now I know what you have and what you don't have. So therefore I'm in control. This is what's happening in Africa and all around the world through the New World Order, where they do like a screening on the AI, all these faces, all these families. Who is the ethnic minority over there? Who is the marginalized, the isolated on a remote island over there? In Africa, in America, Brazil, Venezuela, Mexico, the other side of Russia, all around the globe. If you can't call it a New World Order, what would you call it? If it's something else? To me, it is some type of an exotic war or some type of a new modern government war where they would exactly pinpoint where you are on the map to target you for abuse. So we need some type, if there is this enemy, I know there is, there's no question of if there is this type of attack. For the example of FedEx company. It's a van, so what? It's only a van. Oh, for goodness sake. Don't be emotional about a van. So someone who's just had an affair and they see a car on the road flash across their eye with a van logo FedEx. How does that make you feel? My spouse is having an affair. Shite. Shoot. So it attacks its emotional abuse. FedEx. Logoed. Promoted. A giant sticker in your face. Laughing at you, mocking you, abusing you emotionally. Oh, I know where you've been last summer. Either you have had an affair or your spouse has had an affair. Seeing that flash across your eyes in 3D is not what you want to see. Which is another corruption. To say, why would you want to name your business like FedEx? As an example of hell being more popular compared to heaven. So if that was me making a company or with van and vehicles repeatedly seen by people who cannot control their emotions because of having the trauma or the shock of losing their loved one, you're not going to be in your right frame of mind to control your emotion, are you? Trauma doesn't do that. A trauma cannot enable someone to control their emotion. It's the other way around. It's the opposite effect, where you lose all control of emotion. You burst out crying. You forget what date it is. You forget to eat your food, or you maybe have 2 meals instead of 1 meal a day and overeat. Or you become in a very snappy, irritable mood that you don't want to talk to anybody. You just want to sleep. So it does that where you lose control of your emotion, or you freeze your emotion. You don't feel anything. You become numb. to the point of being emotionally numb, where it becomes excessively controlled, that you could kill someone. So trauma is the opposite of controlling your emotion. And so when the government does this through business, professional or personal, emotional abuse, we need a remedy. So if I, again, originally was going to have a van and a vehicle for the purpose of driving and advertising my logo, what would I call it instead of FedEx? Probably something along like, as the deer pants for the water, so my soul pants for you. In a typical Psalms. Maybe thirsty deer. Which would encourage people, empower people who are emotionally abused to drink more. Because the more you drink and keep your body hydrated, the more your body could function properly and eventually be able to control your emotions. Or some other favourite thing to make heaven more popular than hell in comparison. So maybe an advert to say come closer rather than keep your distance, because FedEx to me means keep your distance, stay away. I've just had sex with some newcomer and I'm full. Hell, compared to heaven, means we're overflowing, we're bubbling over. We're also full of love, not lust, full of something that is not necessarily sexual. So human intimacy, whether that's romantic or platonic, a love between a parent and child or a spouse, there has to be teamwork and a working relationship within the family unit and or in a formal setting. To pour out my soul, to refresh that, so that I'm reflecting on that is holy and pure rather than that which is perverse, which makes me always think of, I've just ejaculated or I've just come. Instead of thinking of coming with sexual stimulation and pleasure and orgasm, I can think of something else. Instead of FedEx, I could say I ruffled somebody's feathers, or what could I say? Something that says come closer, that doesn't make me think of sex. However, it becomes a intensely beautiful feeling of being full, but not always on sexual fluid. I'm filled with COVID vaccine. I've had my vax, which is a perverse advertisement similar to FedEx. So to have that wholesome message that is not sexualized, because they make such a big deal out of it in corruption and infidelity. They're never punished for their crimes and they get away with their crimes. They even get married and promoted. It should be against them on their police records and on their CV records. Can't employ you, sorry. You're a sex offender, or you have, even worse than sex molestation, groping someone. You're a rapist. You raped someone. So that needs to differentiate what is minor, what is major. Rapist, molesting. So molesting is a minor sexual offence that could progress into a major, but it's still different. It's minor to major rapist. There is no such differentiation in Parliament, in law, and there should be. They've put it all in one category, which is out of order. So I have abstained from sex today's date, the last time I had sex with was my daughter's dad in 2005. It's now 2025. Because of my choice. I had opportunities to with my boyfriend, and I decided not to. So now going back further to my childhood, when I told my mum I was sexually abused when I was 6 and 5, she didn't believe me because she was a perpetrator. She told everyone that I imagined it. And at the same time, she forced me to go in the same bed as her, same bath as her, and her boyfriend sexually molested me. And I could have been raped. It was that bad. And I was too afraid to tell my auntie in Cambridge because she's financially supporting her and because she's a bully. I believe she murdered my mum, murdered her mum, because when I had experienced her high heels, so if this is a dustpan and brush, her high heels hitting me over the head and making my head bleed when I was coming from boarding school 5 years, stealing my money. I could have gone to the local free school. No, they were jealous and envious. They wanted to destroy all my money. So I had nothing for college or for university or for driving a car. So the money that I was hit by in a road traffic accident and compensated, they stole that, forced me to go to boarding school, only to protect my cousins in Cambridge because they knew I was sexually abused and they never helped me. They just dumped me in a Christian boarding school and they just thought or guessed, fantasized that it's all okay, I'll forget about it. They didn't care. Still don't care, I don't think. And so it's very bad what my situation is of child abuse, because my mum was even wanting to have an affair with my auntie's husband. So she would do anything in her desperation to stop the bullying. She would give her money because she was afraid of my mum coming to England. And so she would do everything to keep her sweet, to stay in former Yugoslavia. And so I wasn't allowed to say anything to my auntie that was bad about my mum, her sister, because she wanted to stop the bullying. She was only thinking of herself. Ouch. Oh. So I made some notes here, which is very relevant in preparation to not speak to them for about 20 years nearly, and then speak to my cousins because she's like a ringleader for my other cousins in Poland and other cousin who's moving out of Yugoslavia. So I'm half caste Montenegrin and half caste Serbian. So my mother is Montenegrin, my father is Serbian. And so she knows where my other cousins are, but she won't tell me their addresses. So she's a bully. And I know she's moving to Sweden. And so I'm hoping to find out if I can try and negotiate with them. And I made some notes on how to negotiate with my cousins. If I can find it, that is. So it's under... So if there is bad actors and acting, there must be some type of holy acting I can do as well. And so that is here. So the lies are rotten and horrible and unfair. So all these conclusions I've made that has spiked. I've never demanded. I don't believe that I'm keeping a grudge or I want revenge. I just want some basic, simple, civil things, such as the address of my other cousins. I already asked nicely. And it's a tragedy what we're supposed to, as a family, increase our moral code, particularly that my auntie calls herself a Christian, to look at the reality and fairness. And I already requested for a phone call back. I don't know if I'll get it back. So the problem with family reunion, after not seeing them for 2 decades, is make them gradually realize the consequences of not having any connection with them, how it has destroyed my identity. I'm hugely undermined. And this is kind of a fashion in the English culture to freeze somebody out and be like a distance cousins. I have suggested to meet once a year because she was the one who said I had a family, but she was actually mocking me because she's emerged to be the one who gets all of their attention. She won't tell me my auntie's telephone number or telephone number of my other cousins. I haven't asked yet, but I believe that when I do ask, she won't give it to me. She's a bully. So I do have the address where my auntie lives, but I wouldn't feel safe to go there on my own, alone. And at this stage, I don't have a single person, not one, that I could say, oh, would you like to go along with me to visit my auntie in Cambridge? And it would cost me a bomb to go there by taxi because I can't travel by train, severely disabled, and 2 hours journey would kill my back just to see my auntie in Cambridge who is dying apparently. So I've tried to give some details to my cousin who is like the main ringleader, but it's as if she's some type of a dragon with a tail up in the air and I have to catch that tail. And I don't feel safe as a result because I am more than a guest. I become an opponent. And so the modernization of the government also, for family reunions, is looking at self-defense rather than to give the benefit of the doubt, like 10% trust, which can gradually increase or decrease. It depends on how the situation is in reality check. So she's constantly flashing her tail. I'm too busy, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it's becoming feverish. Her voice is extra deep as if she's got a flu. She sounds satanic because she knows she's protected and I'm not, legally and in every sense. So if I say something that she doesn't like by the figment of her imagination, I could be in trouble and be totally muted as if I don't exist. So there's no humility as a result of family reunion because of child abuse, that they fundamentally don't want to change, to acknowledge the harm that has done to me. They only want to have this intellectual type of integrity. I am a university student, I am married, I am established, healthy and wealthy. That's my integrity, and that's as far as it goes. Rather than to be morally right on the matter of acknowledging the wrongs that you did and making the change to have some enlightenment, order, and not erratic type of original doubt, erratic type of original, you're nothing, you're nobody, you're not married, you're not a university student, you're not driving a car. So it's about capitalism, colonialism. You don't have a big family, you're nothing. And so that causes a reoffence and the stigma attached to this culture war of trauma. And it's awful. It's worse than death. I'm alive. I'm not dead. And yet I'm treated like a grandmother for my disability. So yes, we need to be an example, and yes, we need to be the answer. But the problem is being blocked, defiant, and uncomprehending in the way they deal with me. And their mind that says they have to constantly be on a lookout for self-defense, and even a single word can make them screw your life up too tight or too loose and blame it on mental health. So all they have to do, find out my address, call mental health services, and the next thing I know, I have a house arrest and dragged by my hair to mental health office to be drugged to my eyeballs. So I don't want to give them my private mobile number. I don't want to give them my private home address, not even a Christmas card. And I think they do have it already. And I sent them a box of chocolates with my home address, which was a mistake. But that was a test of the 10% trust. Got nothing in response, no letter back. Oh, I forgot what your address is. What's your address again? That's the response I get. So I have to try and make her acknowledge that. But not, because she's a narcissist, I have to do it indirectly, sort of almost like a hint, but make it plainly obvious this is right and this is wrong. Not in a way of making myself look more right and her more wrong, but in the sense of making her jog her memory. So I've already done that. She wanted me to give her the address the second time. I refused, because I want to jog her memory and make her work hard for our relationship in order for me to confront the narcissist and the abuser, because all abusers do that. If they sense a weakness, if they sense you can't control them, they will abuse, mainly in a group and as an individual. So she has to have that sense that I have that control over her, that I'm making her work for the relationship, that I'm making her want to take the interest, her call me back rather than me call her, and just to keep her slightly interested, not too much interested. If I'm too interested with her, or she's too interested with me as an abuser, ringleader who is blocking me from my extended family, she would probably block me even more. So I have to keep my distant cousins distant as a conclusion. And it's very, very, very horrible. I never thought I'd see the day where I have publicized the fact that I'm more likely to probably die before my own parents. That's how bad this is. That my mum killed her mum through beating her over the head. I used to see her do it. Give me the money as a gangster or I'll beat you up. She was a virgin at the same time that my dad was a virgin, and then they both made me. But they hated each other and me ever since. My father did the same thing to his mum. He beat her up by stealing her money and stopping her from getting the medication when she had gangrene, blood poison in her foot. He said the hospital was too slow. It's the hospital's fault. It's not his fault. So he knew what to do when he had COVID flu recently. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen my dad only four times in 4 decades. So it's a different story altogether. He has his quick emergency service and extra money from his wife that he married as a gold digger. So he gets there, all the attention, all the fame, all the fortune as a devil worker in astrology and the occult. As a worse hypocrite. Quick services for him, very slow services for his mum. So he killed her. Oh, he will deny that he murdered his own mum. He did that so that he could impress his wife, so he could have more capital, more housing, more money for his car, more money for his marriage, more money for his honeymooning with so many. He had more than 20 sexual spouses. My mother had more than 20 sexual partners as spouses, and I had one. So I'm winning. I won the race. I'm in the face of these tyrants that say that it is the money that makes the world go round, not the moral and not the code or the moral civil human rights. They go out the window. That's how I close my video. As a result of this nation becoming less moral and right, not the whistle moral blowers, not that type, but I mean the type that digs deeper, that looks at both sides. There's two sides of every story rather than have only partial judges and self-righteous whistleblowers, not that type of whistleblower. So it's getting worse as a result of no longer being a Christian nation, or either having a false Christ or an antichrist. So I close my video. Never thought to my life that this day would be to say that an abuser and tyrant can call itself a Christian. Anyone who's a true Christian would stop being a tyrant, and God is not a tyrant. I recently heard David Icke say an evil thing, that God is a tyrant because every knee will bow down. David Icke. And that is in reference to the new planet Earth, where there's no death and no evil, where every knee will bow down to Christ. That hasn't happened yet. It's in the future. So they're looking to find the real Christ, the real Bible, and the real scripture and pervert it. That's why I called him evil. They don't know what they're talking about. And I will want to keep that record permanent until he apologizes for the wrong that he has said against the Christians, saying that Christians are now tyrants and that God is a tyrant. So when God commits genocide against a nation, when God Creator kills a human being, God is not a murderer and God is not a tyrant, because God kills evil. The angels kill evil. Not nuclear weapons, not humans, and not animals. It's talking about God, the Creator. So God is not evil. God's not a tyrant. Christ is not evil. Christ is not a tyrant. What the hell is he talking about? He owes an apology for Christians around the world for saying that on his channel. That's why I called him evil. I mean, how dare he call Christian God a tyrant? Closing my video. Go and find someone else who's a real tyrant. Call them a tyrant, such as your body.